This video is to introduce you to the egg drop project. So let's see, if you look at your packet that you received and you go to the second page and look at the back, you will see that you have a copy of this form. If you lose it, you can always download it from my website, and then within this video you'll see a rubric that I'm going to use to grade it. You can also download that from my website to see if you are meeting the requirements. So let's see here. The purpose of this project is for you to use the concept of impulse and its relationship to momentum to create a method that will allow you to drop a standard large raw chicken egg off of the home side of the bleachers and land on uneven dirt surface and survive. Your focus should be on the concept of impulse and how it is applied to the egg. Now, I realize that momentum and impulse aren't things that we've talked about. You've just watched a video, but that's what we're going to spend the next couple weeks doing. But in the meantime, you can at least research and start thinking of ideas of your project and then add in the conceptual piece of explaining it once you've finished. So again, we are going to go to the bleachers, and we are going to take that long walk up. We're going to use the home side of the bleachers. Once we all get to the top of the bleachers, we're all going to kind of line up along this fence, and then one at a time we are going to drop them over the edge and kind of guess what happens. So it's a pretty long drop, and hopefully you can see that right in this area here there's actually kind of a hill there. So because there's a hill, realize that when your project hits this area, it might fall over on its side also. So it not only has to survive the drop, but it also has to survive any sort of bouncing around or any flopping on its side that might go on also. So going back to our paper, we can now focus on the points, right? Also, this part here in this section, right, where we want to talk about a due date. When you come into class tomorrow, just take a look on the board, and I'll be sure to point it out to you, but we'll have a due date written on the board so that you'll know when the project is due. You can see the project is going to be worth 50 points, and actually on this paper you're going to only see a total of 45 points, but when you take a look at the rubric you're going to see the other 5 points. Okay, so just focusing on the dimensions. 10 points for having the dimensions of 6 inches by 4 inches by 4 inches or smaller. That's just the maximum side. That includes any sort of every single part of the project. Even if it's a one stick sticking out the side, that counts as part of those dimensions. And you can see that 3 points for having one side larger than a maximum, you lose 3, right? Lose 6 for having 2 sides, and minus 10 for having all 3 sides bigger than they're supposed to be. So if we look over here, right, this is just some box I taped together, but you can see that it doesn't have to be a square or some sort of cube. It can be different sizes, but if you can see, it looks there, I have one dimension that's 6 inches, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to stick a ruler next to it and measure it up. We can see that another side is 4 inches, and another side is 4 inches. So it appears to fit the maximum dimensions, but if you're really careful, because I was not careful when I was making the box, one side looks 6 inches, another side looks a little smaller than 6, but this third side, well, now all of a sudden it's bigger than 6 inches. So now, because it's bigger than 6 inches, you would be looking at losing 3 points because you're off on one side. Let's move on to the egg surviving the fall. Right, we have 12 points for the egg surviving the fall. You have minus 2 to 3 points if the egg cracks but it's not leaking, minus 6 to 8 if it's leaking but not totally broken, and minus 10 to 12 if it totally breaks. So just to kind of give you some visuals to go with that, right, we're going to take this egg Make sure that it, and you can bring your own or I can supply it, but make sure it's not hard boiled, and you'll have to crack it open at the end or I'll spin it to make sure it isn't. But you can see, okay, well here we have an egg that's cracked, but it's not leaking. Now we have another one that's cracked more severely, so you're going to lose more points because there's a little bit of leaking. Now we have one with a hole in it. So there's all sorts of things that I'll see where this one looks cracked in half, where you're going to lose different amount of points based off of what the egg looks like. And then of course ending with your egg is totally destroyed in your project, and therefore you're going to lose all of those 12 points. So the next section here, 13 points for the written paragraph. By the way, I graded the Mousetrap card project, and you guys did a great job for the most part on that. Hopefully that will continue on this project. So 13 points for a written paragraph explaining how your project works in terms of impulse, momentum, force times mass, and velocity. The explanation should start when the project is released and be specific and detailed. So let's take taking a look at the paragraph, right, you can see that it goes into some detail here. So hopefully by reading this rubric, you'll get a little more detail of what I'm looking for, right? What I'm looking for is a paragraph that correctly explains how the project works in terms of momentum and impulse. The paragraph also uses keywords for the unit such as momentum, impulse, force, mass, velocity, and time, which are all the aspects that make up both momentum and impulse. So make sure you include those in your report. Okay, effort. It says materials used. So the materials, if they're unique, right, the materials are used or the way in which they are used is not present in other projects, or they are used in less than 6 other projects, at least 3 different types of material are used. So you need to use 3 different types of materials. You can't just use the same materials over and over again. And you're going to see down at the bottom, you're going to give me a list of the 3 main materials that were used in your project. So if you look through those, you're going to see that if they're found in a bunch of different projects, then you're not going to get some points, or you're going to lose some points because they weren't unique, and you didn't think outside the box necessarily. You kind of came up with the same ideas as everybody else. And the last 5 points, the 5 points that was not shown on the other paper, is this paragraph conventions and organization. Right? It's just, did you use proper grammar and punctuation? And I know I'm not great at that, so odds are I'm not even going to know. But anyways, it has to be written in a paragraph, and it says the paragraph is easy to read with good transitions. So try to stay away from a situation where you're just using the same repetitive transitions as you're writing. So as I showed on the rubric, that there's 10 points for the materials used, and it says here that you have to use at least 3 different types of materials. The container it's stored in does not count as one of those materials, so you wouldn't list, for my example, for my video, you wouldn't list cardboard in there as an example. and there was -2 to 6 points based off of the originality of your items. Notice it says that -10 points for using items that were restricted from the list. Well, if you look further down on the paper, right, you're going to see that there is some materials that you cannot use in your project, or you're going to lose all of those points. So we have any type of thick liquid type substance: peanut butter, jelly, oil, mayonnaise, yogurt, shaving cream. I didn't list all of them, but if it's this thick liquid type substance, then you should not use it. As an example, let's take a look at this video. We have this guy who has a bucket full of Jello, basically, and he throws it up and wants to see what happens. Well, two problems here. First, it's Jello. That's that thick type substance. And the second problem is, I would not suggest testing your project like him, because if you throw it from the roof of your house or you throw it up as high as you can, that's not the same as being dropped from the bleachers. But one thing that's good about his project is that once your project is done, you will have to go through and get your egg out to prove that it's made it and didn't break. So make sure you design it in a way that you can easily get to that egg and pull it out and show me the egg, so I can make sure it's not hard boiled, and so I know that there's no cracks in it. Notice the next type here, we say any type of padding, cotton material from shirt, tissue, paper towels, This, you see, the first two are the typical. You stick an egg in a jar of peanut butter or jelly. You surround an egg with a bunch of, cotton balls or paper towels. That's something that you could have done when you're in 5th or 6th grade, probably, or maybe even younger, and made your egg survive. So you need to be unique in how you're making this product. That goes along with the next one: no packing materials, right? No styrofoam, packing, bubble wrap, things like that, because it's too easy. I want you to think outside the box and be creative. The fourth piece here: no parachutes, wings, or anything else that will cause the project to be slower when it falls. So what we don't want to happen is we don't want a scenario like this video. Got some music that goes with it. The basis of that project was use a parachute. It wasn't about momentum and impulse when it hits the ground. It was about just making sure it lowers slowly when it was hitting the ground. So we don't want that either. The next piece, right, no balloons filled with gas. That doesn't mean you can't fill them with a liquid. You just can't fill them with a gas. And then the last piece, no shredded paper, bread, or marshmallows. So nothing that's really easy just to add padding around your egg. Notice that there is these bonus section here in the middle, right? 2 points for the fastest project. So we'll take a timer, and whoever wants the fastest time, we'll have all of those people go at once. Whoever reaches the ground the fastest gets 2 extra points on their project. And the second one is we want to see the whole entire egg. It makes it a little bit more difficult in the project. So if you look, I was trying to find some examples. This picture here is not one that I would suggest you try to duplicate. I don't think that egg would make it, but you can see that, I can see that egg. Almost all of it, right? There are pieces that are blocked by the toothpicks, but pretty much I can see all of it. Same with this picture here, right? I can see all of it. It's wrapped in some sort of plastic band and it's got some rubber bands, but I can still see, 95+% of the surface of that egg. Therefore, they would receive the 2 extra points for making that type of project. So good luck. Take a look at the rubric online and let me know if you have any questions.